treasure here. Here, I'm just gonna dig straight down and check. Okay, and oh my god, there is! I'm so lucky!
I think I found some of the funniest fake Minecraft speedruns because the speedrunners are absolutely terrible at hiding the fact that they're literally cheating. This first speedrun starts off pretty normal because they're right next to a village. And the first thing they do is run into the village and steal some farmers' crops. Once they finish stealing all of the food, they suddenly see a panda. But the thing is, pandas only spawn inside of super hot biomes, like the desert or the Nether. So a panda being right here is extremely rare. Well, the speedrunner picks up an egg dropped from a chicken and throws it right at the iron golem, which does not make him very happy as he starts chasing down the speedrunner. So in fear, the speedrunner runs away until they finally go in a house which has a chest. Now, at first, this would seem pretty normal until you realize that this specific house inside of a village never has any chests, which makes me believe that they placed down this chest here before the speedrun started. And this is even more proven because whenever they open the chest, they find some weird loot, like an iron pickaxe, an iron helmet, an iron sword, one iron ingot, and iron pants. Loot that could only spawn if this was a blacksmith. So this loot has to be fake. Well, they take all of this loot, put on the iron armor, and go around the village a little bit more until they find an actual blacksmith. And in the chest is a calibrated skulk sensor. I'm not even gonna lie, I didn't even know that was a thing. Where they take this calibrated skulk sensor and start heading out of the village. That's when they suddenly see a ruined portal down in this river. So the speedrun safely makes their way down the hill, and once they make it to the ruined portal, they open the chest and find some actually pretty normal loot. They take all of this loot and use the flint that they got from this ruined portal and the iron ingot to make themselves a flint and steel. They also got one obsidian from the chest, which is the exact right amount they needed for the ruined portal, which you could argue is just a coincidence, but I'm honestly not too sure. They finish the ruined portal and go into the Nether. Now, once they're in the Nether, they get a pretty lucky spawn because they spawned right next to a fortress. But instead of going inside the fortress, the speedrunner instead decides to dig on the side of it. That's when they suddenly find some gold blocks. And trust me, there is a lot of gold blocks. They get them all, which is like 13 stacks of gold blocks, and they make them into gold ingots. They then dig open this hole to reveal tons of piglins, which is definitely not scripted at all. They then drop all of their gold ingots onto the piglins and leave them there as they go adventure into the fortress. Now, before they really get into the fortress, some weird stuff is going on because we can see tons of random holes throughout the entirety of the fortress, which I believe is actually a trail. And I have a weird feeling that this trail is gonna lead them to the blaze spawner. And if my guess is correct, I would highly recommend subscribing. Well, the speedrunner follows the trail for quite some time until eventually they find the blaze spawner, which means I was right and you should honestly subscribe because it genuinely helps me out so much. Now, for some reason, the blazes aren't really spawning at this blaze spawner, so the speedrunner digs out the holes so that way blazes can actually spawn. And once they do, the speedrunner starts killing them. And on their first 2 kills, they get 2 blaze rods, which is not impossible, but extremely lucky because we all know someone else who got extremely lucky with some blaze rods, where they continue to just keep on fighting all the blazes until something very, very weird happens because the speedrunner gets extremely low and even down to half a heart. But a sudden cut happens and we can see all of the loot moved around, and they also magically gained almost a full level of XP, which doesn't usually happen. So my guess here is that the speedrunner died but decided to instead cut it out. But the speedrunner starts making their way back towards their nether portal. But this is when I realized something very suspicious because right before the cut happened, the speedrunner had 4 blaze rods and now they have 6. So I also feel as though they gave themselves some blaze rods, which is actually against the rules of speedrunning. But once they finally make it back towards their portal, they go to check their trades with the piglins. And to say the trades were not very good would be an understatement because they only got 5 ender pearls and they need at most 12. So instead of trading some more with the piglins, they instead just leave the nether. Now that they're back in the overworld, they start exploring in some completely random direction. And if I paused the video here and told you that something suspicious was in this screenshot, you would probably think I'm lying because at first glance it seems pretty normal. That is until we see this little patch of pumpkins, because whenever the speedrunner goes up to the pumpkins, they go to this very specific pumpkin and dig straight down below it. That's when they find themselves in the stronghold. Yeah, this definitely looks like a real stronghold. There's even a sign that says Ral Stronghold, so it's gotta be real. Okay, the speedrunner at least tried to make it seem like it was a real stronghold, but I'm gonna be honest, this was absolutely absolutely terrible. The speedrunner opens up their inventory and we can see that they now have 12 ender pearls, even though whenever they were trading, they only had 5. So I guess at some point during the speedrun, they must have given themselves some ender pearls, where they make themselves some eyes of ender and place in all of the eyes and enter the end. To say this end fight was close would honestly be generous, because the speedrunner doesn't hit the ender dragon a single time. They instead start randomly building up and build this weird structure out of obsidian and crying obsidian, and even place down their skulk sensor. They then start punching their skulk sensor until they suddenly type inside chat /kill@A. But before they do that, they change their game mode to creative and then they type it, because this is supposed to kill every entity inside of the game. And if the speedrunner is in creative, it won't kill them, right? Well, actually wrong, because the speedrunner types in this command and it actually kills him. And at this point, the speedrunner is just mad, so they just give up and the speedrun just ends there. The speedrunner starts by mining a tree, but the tree is falling. Okay. Well, they then go into a cave and open an emerald. Wait, what? Oh my god, this is the wrong footage. I am so sorry. If you could do me a huge favor and subscribe, that would genuinely make my day. This speedrunner starts by choosing their world, and they go to click on a world that they already created. And if we look closely, the world says it's in creative. Not only that, but there's also cheats, which is against the rules of speedrunning. Well, the speedrunner clicks on the world, and once they spawn in, their spawn seems pretty normal. That is until they turn around and they're in a village. They start heading around the village, and for some reason, the villagers are growing birch trees. I've never heard of that before, but maybe it's in the newest update. Well, the speedrunner goes inside of a pen where there's a cow and a tree, and they start mining the tree. They mine some logs, and underneath the last log is actually a chest. So the speedrunner opens the chest, which has full diamond armor and some diamond tools, which if you ask me is 100% legit. They take all the armor and the tools and put on the armor, and then they start spam clicking on the iron golem. But if we look back at the very start of the speedrun, they were on version 1.20, which means that spam clicking doesn't even do any damage. So the speedrunner sits here for a very long time, constantly hitting the iron golem until eventually it dies. They pick up the iron and then head inside of a house to steal one singular potato. Don't ask me why, because I have no idea. They begin heading out of the village until they find a lava pool and a nether portal that's already lit for some reason. So like any normal person, they're obviously gonna go inside of the portal. And the speedrunner got a lucky spawn because they're in the fortress. So they start heading down the path of the fortress until they find a chest and a sign. And the sign says happy birthday. So I guess it's the speedrunner's birthday. And inside the chest is some eyes of ender. Dang, this is one lucky speedrunner. They take all the eyes of ender, and as they turn, we can see an end portal in the nether, which is very strange. But the speedrunner makes their way back towards the portal and enters the overworld. Once they're back in the overworld, they find this waterfall. So of course they climb it and they swim into the hole where they find this secret base. And there's also a lectern with a book. The speedrunner clicks on the book and the book says, "Congratulations." I didn't even know that was a word, but okay. "You did found the Mr. PP the Greats Jr. the Second the Great's secret base. This base is a secret base." Wow, it's a good thing they said this base is a secret base 2 separate times back to back, or else I would have had no idea. Good job, Mr. Speedrunner. To find the end portal, you must first do riddle on the next page. The riddle is on the next page. Once again, they said it 2 times, just in case we forgot it was on the next page like 2 seconds later. Well, the speedrunner goes to the next page, and it says, "What you looked for is under the lectern thingy." And there's also a hint that says it's under the lectern. Even though this riddle was super duper hard, the speedrunner figures it out and breaks underneath the lectern to find whatever monstrosity this is. It's like an end portal, but it's not. I don't really know. Well, either way, the speedrunner jumps into it. They start building up and head towards the middle of the island. That's when we realize that there are no endermen. Not only that, but there's also no ender dragon. And the portal is already lit. But instead of going inside of it like a normal speedrunner would, they instead click on the egg. They then grab a torch and place it under the egg, so that way they now have the egg. But instead of leaving the end with the egg, they instead travel towards the edge of the map and throw the only egg in the entire game of Minecraft off the edge. You have to be a lunatic to do that. Well, now that they did that, they go towards the portal and just simply beat the speedrun. If you enjoyed that video, I would highly recommend clicking this video because this video is even cooler.